we're always in pursuit. So the thing about computer graphics is that it is a new medium, whereas like animation has a history of 100 plus years. CGI, the term was coined in 1960. So it's just a little bit older than I am. Initially, it was created by, it was used in the military mostly for simulation purposes. So it is a tool to simulate real life situations. So its usage in things like VFX, for these blockbuster films, it totally makes sense. You can simulate now real life situations if you have enough money and render power. Now, the way we're using it is ways that we should be using it, or it wasn't supposed to be used, because the kinetics that you're mentioning. The greatness about hand-drawn animation is that you can bullshit your way, however, if it's impactful, and especially with Japanese anime styles, because of its history, where unlike the Disney 24 frames that you can use, we only have the money and scheduling to use like 8 frames or even less, And therefore, each frame and the transition of the frames is what dictates the impact of anime. Now, that's super hard for CGI, and that's why we've been told that we suck in anime for the longest time. We're trying to, but and also in terms of rendering, you mentioned the toon shading, the self shading, yeah. I mean, none of the real life situation has a borderline on our bodies. That's all aesthetically, driven. The lines are very important, and that how it is created traditionally has been because all the frames are drawn over at least 8 times, while it goes from the original keyframes to in between the whatever. And so that creates like the shadiness, it's like the movement, right? Which is kind of hard to replicate with CGI because it's zeros and ones. Now we developed our own non-photoreal rendering engine that just focuses on the density of the lines or the non-density of lines. So we're tackling that element. I mean, all the shadows, for instance, that are cast, none of the shadows look like the shadows that are cast in anime, because it's all artistically driven, right? So, I mean, physically everything is incorrect. CGI, you can do things if it's physically correct. With anime, you have to do things that are physically non-correct, and that's what is very, very complicated. But we're in the process of figuring it out. Now, the next step is animation, the dynamics you were mentioning. And I do see on the online that Polygon stuff, frame rates, whatever. What is this frame rate? And 16 frames and lack of frames and that whatever. I mean, there are reasons for that. We worked on this thing called Ronya, the Robber's Daughter, and the director was Goro Miyazaki, who's the son of Miyazaki-san. And what he said what he told us, and this was like 10 years ago when we kind of came into to anime, about the same time we were doing STUDIO4. What he says, what makes a Ghibli film is the background paintings. And so the most time we spent, we're trying to find background painters that suited his taste as a Ghibli person. Even now, 70% of our backgrounds are hand drawn. And which means that it's static. And so you have things that are static in the frame and things that are really movable, like the CGI characters, which has to coexist in one frame. To make that look smooth and also having camera moves, that's quite, there's quite an effort doing it. You can, like Spider-Verse, deal with it if you have a lot of time and money. But in Japanese budgets, in the time and money that we are allotted, you can't really nitty-gritty into small details. But we're trying to figure it out. I mean, we're trying. In each of the projects, we digest, what we've done, where we could have done better, how to economize on the processes so that will fit within the budgets. So yeah, it's just a constant learning process. The thing that I'm thinking is that, you know, I mean, I totally respect the hand-drawn community in Japan and all the masters that have come before us, and there's a lot to learn still from them. However, you know, some tools are better fitted for some other expressions than others. And so I think we need to find something that is appeasing to the anime fans while utilizing the usefulness of the CGI tools that we use. We still haven't gotten there. I don't think any of the CGI anime studios have gotten there yet, because there's not been a breakaway hit in CGI animation. Slam Dunk was one of it. However, it's, you know, and we worked on the pilot for that actually 10 years ago. The look we developed 10 years ago, and two of the co-directors are actually our former OBs, you know. So that came close. However, that is a Inoue title. He touched each and every frame mostly. So that's kind of not replicable, but there's a hint of that. So yeah, we're still searching for it. And so please be patient. Things are coming.
No, thank you for that answer. That was fascinating.
Thanks.
Please introduce my feature film, Pupil in Chinatown. Yes, that was made by the 3D. Yes, background is also made by 3D. Yes, but みんなねはうちのスタジオがトラディショナルなハンドドローイングの会社だから、煙突鉢のプペルは 3D で作ったって誰も信じてないんですね。修造さんぜひその煙突鉢のプペルのもうぜひ評価してください。I asked for him.
So to propel, what was the name? Chinatown.
Do you know the name that film?
Propel and Chinatown.
That came out 2 years ago? 2年前?
Yeah, but it hasn't really been.
3 years ago.
Maybe.
So she was saying like the back. I don't know. 背景も CG なの?
3D, part of 3D.
So she said the backgrounds for that is actually 3D, but those who saw it, because her studio is paying for 2D drawings, saw it as a 2D film and didn't realize that it was CGI, which is probably a very good job done.
The film released out in like film festival circuit. A lot of 4 Degrees as films, they come out through the film festival circuit. So like places like Fantasia Film Festival, things like that. But I believe the film is being distributed through G-Kids, so you can get the DVD through G-Kids.
Sorry, this person.
I was kind of wondering about how you guys felt about like remaking certain things. I know with the like Berserk Golden Age remake, I guess what I was wondering is it hard to adapt that sort of thing, and what do you pick from, you know, the manga, the anime, or like whatever other things you guys pick from?
リメイキングをする際にどういう思いを持つんですかとか、例えばベルセルクなんかでいうと、その過去作品があってそのリメイクをするときに、どういう選定基準をするかとか、差別化とかどう考えるのか。
漫画とですかね。
Are you saying like
just in general, like how do you pick what content you adapt into the remake or the anime?
全般的に何をどのようにそのアニメにするかっていうのはどういう考えをしますか？
原作がある場合はそうですね、原作の中の何を監督が作りたいと思うかというところをメインに絞って、フィルムとして映画として監督作品として新たに作り上げるということに、心を砕いてますね。
It's hard for me because there's like I live in Texas, and so there's a lot of phrases and words that I don't use on a daily basis. I speak Japanese like like, if it's like ordering from a menu or just chatting, but when you get into like things like metaphysical or things like that, I'm just like, wow.
Thank you for translating.
If there's original material, the thing that she would think about is, okay, who the director is and what the director wants to put out, emphasize within that original material, and to make into the film. So that's the main thing, what the main message or the distinct points that the director wants to put forward in the original material.
I really enjoyed when you guys put in the, where everybody met each other for the first time in the Berserk remake. I really liked that. That was something that I thought was missing. You guys added a lot of stuff to that I thought was really, really good. And it added so much to it.
Thank you so much.
わかりました。
あと大体分かったんですか？
ベルセルクでその各キャラクターがお互いと遭遇する時のそのシーンとか、まあ、いろんなその原作にはないものを付加されたので、それぞれ一つがすごく好きでした。
とても丁寧に深くその描いていた登場人物の感情を拾ってくれてとても嬉しいです。
She's very happy that you were very meticulous in watching it and picking up on each of the emotional elements that we were trying to portray.
You are great. Thank you.
Thank you.
You had mentioned Princess already never really got a formal English release, and so I was just curious what sort of decision making goes into where to distribute a particular film or a particular work, and how do you make some of those business decisions if the studio is making, it might be the publisher making those decisions, but just what does an animation studio think about that sort of distribution topic and where a work gets distributed?
アメリカで配給されてないんだけど、どこでどう配給するかっていう戦略とかっていうのは、そのアニメーションスタジオとしてはどのように関してどういう考え方をするんですか？
そうですね。日本での公開がすごくヒットした場合は海外からのオファーも多いので、海外でのそのリリースをするチャンスも多くなるんですけど、プリンセス・アリテという作品はとてもとても素晴らしい作品なんですけれども、日本での興行成績があまり良くなかったためになかなか海外のディストリビューターに目をつけてもらえてないという問題があります。ここまで一回訳してみました。
So, normally, if it's a big hit, a lot of these Japanese titles, the foreign distribution comes secondary to the domestic distribution, and when there's a big hit, normally a foreign distribution partner would come and offer them a deal. Unfortunately for Princess Ariete, it did not do very well in the domestic box office, and therefore there was not much of an offer coming from overseas.
で今はサミさんがこのプリンセス・アリーテのアメリカでの配給を検討してくれています。
And currently, Sami is approaching a lot of distributors about the possibilities of distributing Princess Ariete internationally.
So wish me luck.
There's also another element where I don't know if you guys heard about these things called production committees, which is normally the foundation of most of the Japanese titles. And so the production committees are formed by various players who have a slice in the exploitation of the title. In a lot of cases, it's like domestic distribution, DVDs, Blu-rays, animation companies like ourselves, maybe like shading firms and such. And so when in the information, we kind of like designate what area of the business we are in charge of, and foreign distribution being part of it. So it tends to be which company has the foreign distribution rights, or the responsibility to find foreign distribution. And based on that company's power, it may or may not go overseas.
I know that sometimes there are now being Western companies on some of those production committees. For example, I know Crunchyroll is sometimes on production committees. I think Netflix has been on a few. In sort of the modern era, in the 2010s, 2020s, are y'all finding that it's easier to get projects greenlit for overseas release? Is that becoming more of the norm?
Because of foreign entities joining the committees, is that a question?
Or for any reason, does it seem to be easier to get stuff out and distribute it more widely these days compared to?
Well,
what it was 20 years ago?
absolutely in the age of streaming, because the revenues from streaming is such an integral part of the process of a project. Japanese tend to be terrible salespeople. We're terribly introverted, especially the anime industry. And we have a decent number of population within the country, so like unlike Korea, we didn't tend to need to look overseas. And so the fact that the streaming came in and then they realized that anime is a big genre that is a money attracting genre, a subscription attracting genre, kind of really helped us in making our products be realized in 100+ countries all of a sudden without us really making an effort to go sell it. So that's a big change. To your point of production committees, yes, Crunchyroll is in the Netflix's. However, like Crunchyroll is owned by Sony, and so it's a quasi-Japanese entity. Netflix has operations in Japan as well. Being part of a production committee it's like a clique, it's like a small village, and you have to have citizenship within the village in order to be part of the committee. The reason being is that we are a very non-litigious society. Most of these committees are formed without actual contracts being given to each other until, for instance, the production is done, even though we're paid. And so there's a lot of trust system in that end, which is behind why so many projects get greenlit so easily within Japan. And so you have to kind of earn the citizenship in order to become part of the production committee. So it's not like it's an open door already.
Thank you.
Can I add a little bit about Arepi? One of the things is, so I've been approaching several distribution entities about distributing Princess Already. The thing that we're running into is that competing against movies like Jujutsu Kaisen movie Zero or the Attack on Titan movie, and all these other very high action, lots of blood and guts. It's and mainly it's shonen titles. And then you look at Princess Already, which is My Neighbor Totoro, very cute, and oh, so adorable. And so a lot of the distributors in the U.S., they watch it and they're like, no, nobody would want to. How are we going to get boys into the theater? Who cares about boys? Come on, let's get some girls in there.
Yes.
But that's kind of the conversations that I've been having. I've talked with Fathom Events, and Fathom Events is oh yes, if it's action, bring it to us. And I'm like, this is good too. It's beautiful work, and they're like, yeah, but it's not action. So there's that kind of roadblock that we have to kind of navigate through. So there's other avenues that I'm going to go to, but that's kind of it's one of the roadblocks to. There's dozens of movies in Japan that have never been released here in the U.S. But because the market here is very, shonen, boy heavy, there's a lot of movies that just would not make it here because there's that kind of, it has to be action sort of stories. So that unfortunately is something that getting movies here to the U.S. that is a roadblock.
Thank you.
Hello. First of all, thank you for coming and being here at our convention.
Thank you.
My question is just simple. Have you enjoyed your time here so far?
今のところどないですか？
はいはいはい。
今のところサンアントニオ滞在どないですか？
ないですか。Remember アラモに行ってきました。はい。
Remember the Alamo? I went to see the Alamo.
As for myself, I just got here last afternoon, and the organizers kind enough to take us to a boat ride on the river, which was nice. Which was really nice, and we had some drinks. And this morning I was kind of stuck in the hotel room doing work because I had to watch a bunch of short films on jury duty. So yeah, I mean, after this, I think I'm really looking forward to lots of food. Yeah, I'm looking forward to enjoying it.
Food is great.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
really?
Oh yeah.
Give me some hints. Drop me some hints.
メキシカンフードとね、
Tex-Mex
の、そう、タコスと、そうですね。
Mexican food, like Japanese, is like pretty good at adapting lots of different cuisines. In Japan, like French, Italian, other than Japanese food, of course. Mexican food is this one thing that we suck at. Seriously, we just can't do it. We just can't do it. Parts of it is because we don't have the right ingredients. We can't import the right beans and stuff. But the other parts is I think we're too anal to do Mexican. So yeah, every time I come to the States, especially like in these parts, I'm really looking forward to Mexican food.
さっきあの人が手を挙げたの
Anybody else?
止めてしまったんですけど大丈夫ですか？
She's saying that the person here was basically he was holding out on a question. Do you still have a question? Yes.
No, I was going to ask where the movie at 6 p.m. was being aired.
We wanted me to, we're the first guy.
So Motherfuckers will be playing over in which room?
He wanted me to.
B1 and B2 tonight at 6 p.m.
There is actually something. First off, I'd like to thank you for coming. Mind Games is one of my favorite movies. Really enjoyed that one. What was one of the most challenging projects you guys have worked on? Would you consider it the funnest project or just a major pain to work on?
一番その楽しかったプロジェクトと一番大変やったプロジェクトは何ですか？
一番大変だったプロジェクトは一番最初にやはり 3D を使ってトライした小友克弘が総合ディレクターのメモリーズですね。この作品で私ハードアタックで一回死にましたね。
The artist project was the first one that they utilized 3D CGI, and Otomo Katsuhiro directed the one that he directed Memories, and she almost died of a heart attack, literally.
そう、今はだから余生ですってなんていうんですか。
Well, they did turn out really good, so.
So she says like she's living on her last breath. Since that project.
で、そうですね。一番楽しかったのはそうですね。それもすごく大変だったけれども、やっぱりアニマトリックスですかね。
So the most interesting one it was also very tough, but Animatrix is one of the best memories she's got.
何度もやっぱりアメリカにも来られましたし、スタッフがその次の作品のためにオーストラリアまで行って、でその次の主人公を全部写真ビデオで撮ってきて、でその彼を主人公にして絵を描いたりとか、たくさんアンソロジーでたくさんの作品があったので、たくさんの監督にも参加してもらって、ですごい面白い作品が作れ、で作品DVD だったんですけども、多分発売して1週間で400万本売れたのかな、なんか素晴らしいヒットも飛ばせたので、とても結果的に嬉しい作品になりました。
There was a lot of interaction between the directors. A lot of them came to Japan as well, and a lot of their staff went to say, for instance, like Australia to do location hunting, lots of like reference shooting, which became like inspiration for character designs and such. And because it's an anthology, there was a lot of titles, and so they were able to interact with a lot of different types of directors. And also when it went on sale in the first week, it sold 4 million units, which is like tremendous, right? And so it's memorable in a lot of ways.
Thank you. Good work.
I would like to first say thank you for Kiki's River service. I have a very experienced to an art teacher, how do y'all feel in the way that anime industry's AI and workers' rights are being put into question now?
うん。
So how do y'all feel with that?
機器デリバリーサービスはまずありがとうございますと自分はキャラクターと、まあ、子供の時言いましたけども大人になってもそのキャラクターと共鳴するところが多いですが、まあ、質問としては AI についてどう思いますかとその、まあ、権利者であるとか
多分修造さんも AI に関してはいろいろと関心深いとはもちろん思うんですけれども、今 AI 本当に怖いところまで来てますよね。なのでまあ、生成 AI にするのか、そのディスクリミネーティブというかその作品ごとにね、その限定した使い方をするのか、どういう使い方をするのかによって、またはその作品を作るのか、それとも作品を管理するのか、そのさまざまな使い方ができると思うので、上手に使っていきたいなというふうに思ってますね。
So she says, I probably have my opinions, but she says that it's coming to a stage where it's getting kind of scary. And so be it using generative or discriminative by using it title by title, or using it for the purposes of creating actual footages or for the purposes of managing titles, we do have to devise a way to use it wisely. Which is kind of my position as well. I mean, being a CGI company, I mean, I am not afraid of it, and I have bigger concerns actually, you know, in that it's, I mean, making animation is really tough, and for CGI companies like ourselves, the cost structure is human resources, computers, and applications. All of them are getting more expensive. Computers, applications, they're all getting expensive, you know? And so it's coming to a point where at least within the Japanese budget system, it's getting so hard to create, which means that we need to come up with a revolutionary way to economize our processes. And so AI is a very smart tool, which I think will help us if we use it wisely. Of course, I mean, as with all tools and all technologies, there will be some jobs that will become inundated because of the new technology. But it's not just AI, it's been the history of technology, and therefore we humans have to step up. I'm still very much confident about us humans and our ability to create better stuff. And so we just step up. I'm sure that, like, you know, for things like TikTok or like short content, which has to be more agile, you would not review it over and over again, that some of it might just do with AI stuff. But that serves its purpose, you know, but I don't think it will come to an age where you will see a whole feature film that is solely created by AI and doesn't use any sort of human interface. So.
Thank you so much. I actually had to talk about this in my high school debate class, and I'm so excited actually have people who actually work in the industry and able to see their viewpoints on it so much. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a big conversation. It's like in my Facebook thing, and I also find it like kind of interesting that the opinions are kind of different depending on like my Western counterparts are more boisterous about this compared to my Japanese counterparts, and I have this weird kind of like Japanese philosophy mentality because being bicultural and stuff, you know. And I think for me, like AI, we treat it quite the same as like earthquakes in our typhoons. It's a natural phenomenon that we have to deal with, you know, even though it's technology human-made. So, yeah, I think something that we will be living with. Somebody else? Yeah.
So, what are some places that your studios tend to scout for new talent? And I was curious how comfortable you were with working with Western artists. I've noticed some smaller Japanese studios starting to collaborate with like French animators or French background painters. And I just wanted to see how open your studios were to working with people who are able to, you know, paint the backgrounds or animate the characters, but maybe don't have quite as high level functionality of like communicating in Japanese, and if there were any barriers with joining the animation industry if you had a difficulty speaking Japanese.
海外からのスタッフをどのようにソースして、ね、まあどのように受け入れたりするかとか、どういうハードルがあるかとか。
そうですよね。 でも修造さんの方がそれに関しては、詳しいんじゃないですか。どうぞ。
So, what she was saying, I probably have more opinions to that. In our studio, so we have a studio in Tokyo, we have a studio in Malaysia, and we have a studio in India. In our Tokyo studio, which is about 300 people, traditionally about close to 15% will be from other countries. So we have like 20 different nationalities normally. And so we are quite open to international talent. And because like we do a lot of different projects, you know, we do like anime stuff, however, but we still do stuff like Marvel, Spider-Man stuff, you know? And so it's behooved, I mean, it makes sense for us to have a different type of people working in our studio. In terms of communication, with our Malaysian studio included, we have 15 translators, interpreters working full-time, translating all of our emails, client interactions, also like internal meetings. And especially in the world of Zoom where like, you know, still 70% of our workforce is working remotely now. And so a lot of our things are Zoom based. And so Zoom has a bilingual channel. So all of our meetings are now simultaneously translated. So communication, I mean, in terms of languages is not much of an issue. Communication is an issue because we're humans, like, you know, you can speak the same language, we cannot communicate. So, I mean, that's an issue regardless. But yeah, I mean, we have been that way for close to 2 decades now. And we have a lot of application coming in from overseas, especially because the North American animation industry or entertainment industry, you may or may not know, is going through some really tough times. And Japan is rather better off. So we do have a lot of applications overseas. Most of them, all of it is actually just coming from the internet.
修造さんのようにその英語がとても得意ではない私のような会社ではやはり、日本語が話せるということがとても重要なポイントになってきますね。
So in a studio which is not as proficient in English as like my studio, so being able to communicate in Japanese is quite important.
日本のクリエイターたちもほとんど英語は喋れないし、それ以外の言語もほとんど喋れないので、うちの作品に参加する人が日本語を覚えていただくというハードルがあります。
Most of the creators in Japan cannot speak their second language other than Japanese, and so those who want to work on their projects must learn to speak the language.
で、結局フランスからも、韓国からも中国からもアメリカからもうちのスタジオに日本語ちょっとでも喋れたら、うちのスタジオに来てうちで一緒に働くことが多いです。
So even if they have staff from France or Korea or China, but they do come to the studio and work together and learn to be proficient in the language.
で、海外の会社とコラボレートするときにはやはり通訳がとても重要な働きをしてくれます。
And in co-productions with overseas companies, interpreters are quite important.
ただ今までいろんな海外とのコラボレートした作品作ってるんですけども、どうしても会話が翻訳のような会話になってしまうので、それを自分の言葉として演技させるということがお互いに必要になってくるので、とても重要だと思っています。
So even if there is an interpreter, I mean, the essence of the communication tends to be lacking, and so she thinks it's important that we kind of we own our language, however the process may be, so that we can speak heart-to-heart.
技術的な会話とコミュニケーションも必要ですけども、作品の理解を、どういう文化の違いでどういう感情の流れだったりとかドラマの作りみたいなことをどうお互いに理解するのかっていうのがとても重要だなと感じています。
Technical conversations are important, however, the most important one is to understand what the title is about, the essence of the story, overcoming differences in culture, cultural understanding to really grasp the essence of the story, regardless of where you're from.
So I'm gonna cut things off. We are 4 minutes into the end. I just wanted to say thank you all for some amazing questions, and please give a huge round for So later on today, what time do they have the autograph sessions? Okay, so in 30 minutes, we'll be over at our autographing tables in the dealer's room. Just to let you guys know, they do not charge for autographs. But please limit the number of items that you get signed, and just one of the rules that we're gonna have is because we're doing the autographs for free, please do have them dedicated to either you or a friend. Okay, so we're not just gonna do autograph and have you guys like sell it on eBay. So we're not gonna deal with that. So this is a special present to you guys. So please respect that, and please do come by the table later today. Okay, thank you. And so later on tonight is going to be Motherfuckers, tonight at 6. And then for Polygon, we're doing a screening of kind of the...
The Great Snow Sea.
Kind of the Great Snow Sea. We'll be screening, that'll be tomorrow, is that correct? At 12:30. So that'll be, I believe, the first time that it'll be screening here in the US, I believe. So please do come and see it.
Thank you.
Thank you.